What the hell was that? I was about, must have been 20, 30 minutes into life story or whatever of some of it's about spiritual experiences and just my youth growing up. The sort of, crap that I've seen and dealt with. And hadn't even really got started. I think I'd reached the time of, I was talking about like high school, the bullshit in high school. I kind of skipped over a bunch of stuff, huh? I guess this was meant to be talking more about the spiritual stuff going on in the world. And, I think I might have sort of lost my momentum there. Talking about... God, that's messed up. Just like candidly talking about childhood through, sort of stuff that went on in school and the fights that I got in and all the... starting to get into some of like the struggles and stuff throughout childhood. And I guess skipping way ahead now, maybe I'll make that video again talking about my childhood again more of it. There's always been this presence in my life. Oh, 316, okay. My whole life. Forget about the stories of my childhood, I guess, right now, but throughout my life there's always been presences most of my life, spiritual, like weird stuff going on. And I've had a lot of time where, over the years I've learned about more and more about what's going on in the world. I remember being a kid and just thinking that, oh, this was a good place, and, loving to be out in the beauty of nature and loving my family, loving, animals, and I'm not really understanding this place. And it's been really shocking and horrifying the more that I come to learn about this place. Honestly. So I'm just kind of skipping ahead into that stuff. I grew up in a house that was like, to my young understanding, seemed to be like haunted. And, my sister and her friends were into like witchy stuff, into the, dabbling in the occult, basically. In my family, we had, I don't know, like a number of us in my family just seem to have psychic abilities. My grandma, my mom, my dad to some extent had some pretty intense spiritual experiences, although he's drifted far away from that kind of stuff. And I had visions and prophetic dreams and things like that throughout my younger days. And sister got me into doing like psychic exercises and stuff. When I was pretty young, and you know, to a point, times in my life when I had basically, full on telepathy and, pick a color, pick a number, pick, this, that, the other thing. I could do projections of something in my mind and make somebody see it, Like if there were times in my life, yes, when I was to a point psychically as a kid to where like I could sit there and like focus really hard on like visualization of, well, to the point where like I could like visualize a bear in my mind or something so strongly that one of my classmates might freak out because they saw a bear, you know, something like that, whatever, right? I had this time when a friend was over and I was wanting to do the psychic exercises or whatever, and he's playing Sega or something, right? And I don't know, I just sat there on the bed and I started visualizing, the old Starfield screensaver, like stars flying at you? I closed my eyes and just started visualizing that really strong. And, he's got his back facing me, he's on the other side of the room playing video games. He gets up and yells, and I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? What happened? And he said that basically that stars were flying at him, and, So, yeah, I was kind of like, it seemed like I was being groomed into some kind of spiritual thing from a very young age. And as I got, older, it's like I was being drawn into things, all the stuff on TV, Charmed and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and, my sister was into these kind of things, and doing the psychic exercises, and I was just, practicing things like that, sometimes even in school and stuff. I remember I watched that movie, what the hell? The Craft. Yeah. I never really got too much into the witchy side of things, though. I mean, really, in terms of, like, I wasn't... I mean, I researched this stuff at one point, like in my teens and early 20s, some. I was reading a bunch of, like, esoteric stuff, and started to learn about, like, sorcery and voodoo, stuff like that. Just out of curiosity, really, though. I wasn't, like, doing animal sacrifices or spreading fucking snake ashes on people's doorstep or burying people's pictures in cemetery dirt gathered after midnight on a full moon and dumping fucking rotten eggs on them. Yeah, I was just some examples of things, but I didn't do that kind of stuff. I wasn't really I would light candles and hang out in front of candles and stuff like that, but I was just mostly like trying to get like telekinetic or pyrokinesis or something, I just liked fire, that too, And my sister had got me into all that. She got me into like, crystals and burning sage and incense and meditating, candles, and that kind of stuff. But I wasn't doing freaking spells on people and crap, though, you know. Although sometimes, you know, I mean, I think by the time I was like a teenager, by the time I was like, especially around like 16, when I ended up in moving out of the country and ended up in town, I was surrounded by a lot more like dark sort of stuff. And ended up falling in with kind of a basically bad crowd of people, honestly. I don't know, I grew up going to Sunday school and stuff like that, at least for a while, and most of the people I grew up around were, you know, farm kids that were going to church on Sunday, and I liked going to church. I went to, you know, went to preschool, to Sunday school, you know, church. But all that, like, spiritual stuff, the, you know, God and the devil kind of stuff and so on. I had, you know, like, some visions and stuff in childhood. Where I met God and, you know, intense dreams and some visions while I was awake of, you know, strange spiritual occurrences. I used to have these dreams where I was it's like I was shown a lot of future things. Like I was being instructed or something. I don't know. As I got to be like 16 and beyond that, you know, that's when I started, people got me into, like, you know, basically drugs and, you know, pot, pill popping, alcohol, etc., etc. And that's where I was, like, kind of delving into, before I ever did any of that stuff, like, I was already starting to develop some pretty advanced, like, psychic abilities with practicing with people and stuff. Just doing, like, psychic exercises with some people, and then with that stuff along came, like, a sort of a more, I think, when I, you know, looking back on it, more of a darker spiritual element that was coming in, and you might say, you know, assisting me in toying around with spiritual matters or whatever, and seeing into the spirit realm. I started to see more, well, I don't know, I was even, you know, when I was a kid, before any of that stuff was going on, I was like astral projecting around the hallways while I was in fucking class, you know, in grade school. I'd be bored in class, and I'd be like just sitting there, you know. But then in my mind's eye, I was like floating down the hallways, or, you know, flying around Egypt or some shit, you know. Whatever. Flying to other star systems, you know. of the time had my visualization was so clear, I could do both at the same time. I could clearly visualize something in my mind's eye while my eyes were open and I was dealing with whatever was going on there too. I think I kind of calcified my pineal gland or whatever however you want to say it, as I got older. And in large part, shutting down or turning down my psychic abilities and stuff is kind of a conscious decision in a sense, honestly, because I mean, as cool as all that sounds or whatever, as I got into my early 20s to mid 20s, along with just the things that I had witnessed myself, I was learning a lot about what was going on in the world, the really dark, messed up stuff in the background. I was always looking out, like trying to find the good in the world, because I really believed for so long that, well, basically as evil being manifest in the world was becoming more obvious and I was learning more about it and all the horrible stuff that was going on in the world, I was trying to find the good guys, trying to be one of the good guys, too, right? I wanted to be like a superhero or some kind of crap, And, I was having no trouble finding witch covens and freaking sanguinarian, vampire types and psychic vampires and actual blood drinking, I was able to find, I was looking into all kinds of like religious things, spiritual things and stuff, and I was finding so much darkness in the world. And, I'd get visited in my dreams by like freaking voodoo priestesses, come under, spiritual attack from like demons and stuff like that. I'd end up, engaging in battle in the astral realms and stuff like that. I think that I was kind of like part of my power in that sense. Part of it was just something good that I was born with, and then I think part of it was kind of dark, Like I had potential for both kind of thing, I could fill myself with, positive energy, or I could drain the fuck out of people with like psychic vampirism, basically. Although I didn't realize when I was first doing that, I didn't realize that was what I was doing. And I quit doing that shit. And I realized that that's what it was. And I gained more spiritual maturity, There's more spiritual sort of stuff was going on in the world, I began to just, to turn against the darkness and came to recognize, how evil that crap is. the ones that I thought of as familiars or spirit guides or whatever in my life, I begin to view them as being wicked, evil, out to get me kind of thing, because I was just looking at, how my life was going and the type of people that were around me and the type of things going on, and, I was realizing, that I was just had people basically trying to drag me deeper into darkness and self-destruction, and the thing is, a lot of the people that are still involved, like in shamanic type practices, basically, as you could say, by using, drugs, marijuana, mushrooms, on and on and on. They're still experiencing like the fun times or the kind of stuff that I experienced when I was younger, because the spiritual forces that bring about those things, well, they can show their fangs and show you their real face, or they can show you a happy face with love and light and la 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 la, right? They kind of bullshit you, basically. To a point. But I had reached a point where they were kind of starting to stop bullshitting me, and I was getting kind of like corrupted in, spiritual sense, at a point to where I was starting to be shown, darker things, and I guess I was kind of starting down a left-handed path, in a sense, for a while, from like late teenage years into my early 20s, reading stuff like the Black Raven, Faust Threefold Coercion of Hell, and Satan on War, and, Emerald Tablets of Thoth, books of Hermes, a bunch of, different, ancient sorts of, learning about sigils and altar, Yeah, up to a point. I mean, I basically had an altar and, candles and all that crap, because, but again, I was just like candles and kind of meditate or whatever. I knew about tons of sorts of spells and stuff, but I wasn't doing that crap, I thought that was kind of weird, just kind of another layer of weird. I said, as I said, I'm just, being honest here, confessing that when I was researching things like that, I wasn't, because of the things I'd experienced and the sort of abilities that I'd seemed to have, like when I would get around people that were into, like, your basic, like, Wiccan type stuff. I dated a number of girls that were into, like, witchy stuff, spells, and they'd have, spell books, and everyone with their tarot cards and so on and so forth, and but it all seemed so juvenile and, like, amateurish to me, in a sense, that when I was starting to study into things like, magic and cult practices and stuff like that, I was looking into stuff like, drawing sigils on the floor and having, sacred space to the atame or a, sword or something, and, summoning fucking powerful beings from the spirit. I never did that crap, but I'm just saying, like, that was the kind of stuff I was looking into. I was like, looking into like Enochian fucking, sigil magic and like high sorcery type shit. I mean, I looked into like voodoo, hoodoo kind of stuff too, but that still seemed kind of like. Um, Again, I didn't do the stuff. I just was curious about what was going on, and it came to a point where like I actually started. I was wondering about God, like, because I'd spent years already searching around trying to look for like where's the good guys at in this place. Where is God? There's all these, dark spiritual forces and all this evil going on in the world, which I was already noticing. So where are you, God? And I'd pray, and I started to have like visions again and things showing, exposing kind of the darkness that was at work in my life and in the world, in a sense, and the Bible started to pop up, and I'd have, I don't know, TV would turn on by itself, and there'd just be some Bible sermon talking about, answering questions of things that I was wondering about. Bible would fall off the table and open to a passage that would explain an answer to a question that I was thinking of at that moment, so on and so forth, right? I remember, I was the type of, when I was younger, more just bold, I guess. I would get, upset at the whole situation. Sometimes I would go outside and be, or be in my trailer, or, wherever I was, and be shouting at the sky, basically. If you're real, show me. Who are you? Where are you? Prove it. Kind of thing. And he did. So I feel like God came into my life, really more at that time, and he was showing me a lot of things and helping me to discover things about like this type of spiritual forces that were working in my life. And I started to be, cast out the darkness that was coming into me and to resist the temptation to go towards that darkness. And I basically quit. I quit popping pills. I quit, tripping. I quit using hallucinogens. I quit smoking weed. All that kind of stuff. And I started to be like, started to engage in like, philosophical and, spiritual debates with some of the people that I'd hung out with before that were, into witchcraft and stuff. And theirs was more of a philosophy of there's no such thing as right or wrong or good or evil. It's all just gray area, and that's what everyone, was saying. And I was starting to realize that that's not really true, that there is good and evil, and that so I don't know, I kind of drifted out through, studying the Bible and studying, philosophy, Zen Buddhism, and studying just all sorts of stuff. I was learning more about things, and I began to really think about, things that most people probably have never even thought about, or not for long, not in great depth. And I had a lot of years and a lot of time to reflect inwardly and get to know myself and get to know the presence of God in my life when He was, more prominent and present. He used to come visit me much more often and feel that strong presence and experience like supernatural type occurrences of a more positive nature. But the more I grew in connection to God, the more the darkness of this world turned against me and started to show its ire, Went from being buddy. Now I still get some of that buddy crap from him, from the, darker forces, influences in my life. But I can see through it much more clearly now. And I kind of outgrew the phase, When you first start to see that there's a bunch of people around you that you got like demons in them that are just like monitoring you and, trying to mess with your head and manipulate you or whatever. When you first start getting into like Christianity and stuff, you'd be more like, get thee away, Vede Retro Satanas, And, calling them out and calling people demons and, trying to do that everything's fucked up, right? And I suppose I still get around to doing that kind of shit sometimes, but the crap going on in the spiritual realm and it's spread, Like when I was 16 years old, I had more clear spiritual sight. So this is around 2000, 2001. And I could see the people walking around that had like demon possession. And it was like 1 in 1,000 or less. And now it's just the tables have turned and it's completely the other way around to where it's almost 1 in 1,000 that isn't demon possessed or something, is what it seems like now. As time passed on, the world became darker, spiritually speaking. And the types of weird, like dark spiritual forces, and how prevalent they were everywhere. It just became more and more obvious. Whereas before it was veiled and there was a stronger presence of good, of the light, of a spiritual goodness in the world that the demons would run the fuck away from, basically. They hid in freaking dark basements and caves or whatever. rather than being out walking around proclaiming themselves boldly to be supporters of darkness, as they do now. And honestly, that's really strange to me because I mean, when I was younger, I was more fascinated with the, with it, and I was being, basically, say, charmed or, lured into the darkness. I mean, on a pretty much. I mean, I do think there's probably like been occultists around me or something, but I don't know how high level really. But on a spiritual level, I was basically being groomed for some kind of high position. Probably just some high channel of some sort of dark crap or whatever, but I'm not, I resisted that. Because that's not power, like, you come to realize something about this sort of stuff, right? While, like, selling yourself into slavery isn't a power of yours, you know what I mean? Becoming a fucking meat puppet isn't cool and powerful. It's an illusion. You're getting bullshitted into giving up the rights to. I mean, and a lot of the power that they would use or whatever is just. They're just vamping. They're just vamping off of my power, vamping off of other, people's natural inherent fucking power that we're born with here on this planet, or whatever the hell. Well, I wasn't born on this one. No. I don't know what the heck this is. Hell realm, purgatory, whatever. Well, for starters, the Earth that I recall being from was located in the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy, not the Orion arm. So that's quite a vast distance. The sun, the moon, the stars had distinct differences. I'm tempted to make a little mixed drink or something. Like, bad idea. Haven't touched the crap since the other day. Since I got assaulted by some on a fucking street corner. I don't know, I just sat down on the corner of a street. Tired, drunk off my ass. I don't know if I was half passed out or what the hell. Dude just runs up and fucking clocks me in the... I was just like sitting on a curb. Got socked hard. And you see there's like 3 dudes fucking surrounding behind me. It's real funny. As the darkness gets crazier, I honestly am... One of the things that I wrestled with when I really thought about things, a lot of this sort of stuff that we're kind of conditioned into thinking about and thinking is cool when we're kids and stuff like that. When you really look at it, what does it amount to? Lust, violence, murder, altered state of consciousness, you know, greed. We're fed all this darkness from our youth and taught I took all sorts of martial arts classes and stuff when I was a kid. I got in fights a lot when I was a kid. It was fun, to me. And I got good at it. Large part because I was a small kid, and I had to get tough because it's just kind of, I don't know, my cousins were like judo experts and stuff. Went in fucking judo tournaments and stuff, and they were beating the crap out of me, and grew up out in the country with a bunch of rough and tumble farm boy types or whatever, and then there's the people that were raised by darkness, basically, the neighbors, their tweaker parents and stuff like that. And they were pretty tough kids too, People grow up in hard situations. But I guess what I was starting to get at now is thinking about how it seems like we're surrounded in darkness in this world, and the temptation, especially in my younger days, would have been to, freaking slay them, But then I've seen how that sort of stuff is gone. And that's just for the most part, a trick that the devil plays on people, in a sense. They say we wrestle not against, as it say in the Bible, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of darkness in high places. Well, I gotta say, that seems pretty inconvenient, but right? I mean, because the temptation, right? And I started, fantasizing about, something that would be cool or whatever to try and deal with the situation in the world. I would envision something the armies of Gondor and Rohan, coming together with, Gandalf the White riding against the fucking dark forces of the world, charging down with swords raised, as the sun beams down and casts the shadows into the darkness, right? But what we seem to have here is a situation where the evil is right out in the open everywhere, and everybody seems to be in on it. Well, not everybody, but huge amounts. And also, like we kind of seem to live in a world where, like, the systems of control in this world put people in position where it's difficult to resist the temptation, even because we kind of have to live in this way that where it's like the structure of this world, the way that we have to live our life, the things that we're surrounded by, the things that are, coming at us through the television set, the movies, the magazines, the news, the, you know, everything, the corporations, like, it's all freaking shrouded in darkness and, and corruption. It's like a devil's playground here. It's like every single aspect of this place is here to corrupt us and to darken our soul. Basically. Now there's churches everywhere. I don't see, like, for the most part, I don't think, I haven't known what to make of them. I've been to some churches and stuff, and, like, I always, of course, there's a temptation when you see a world surrounded in darkness, shrouded in darkness, and fucking demonic manifestations all over the world and all this crazy shit. The temptation is to, seek out God, to seek out, fellowship if you can with others that see this stuff, but most people don't even see it. Most people don't even recognize what's going on in the world, and or they'll, or they seem to be almost in like a delusional cult-like state or whatever, where it's just like, I don't know. And then, like, part of the problem is, like, that, for me personally, as far as, like, getting into churches and stuff like that goes, or finding fellowship with, Christians, or whatever the heck, right? Part of the issue with that is that it's like my lot I've been thrown down and cast to the wolves, basically, here. I've been surrounded for years on all sides, basically, in darkness, while many of them have continued to live on some, acres of land out in the country and have had some distance between them and that darkness. And, they haven't been plopped right into it and had it right, that close to them. They've had some space. They've had some solace, solitude, and maybe a greater hedge of protection over them or something than I have. And I don't know about that. I mean, I've had some serious, like, miracles happen, save my life on many occasions. But